Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Devontae, and I sacrifice my time so you don't have to. Here we are again, man. It's hurricane season, so, you're going to be hearing some rain in the background from the most of these videos going throughout the latter portions of August and maybe even going into early September. It is what it is. I live in Miami. Shit happens when you live in Miami, right? But with that being said, let's talk about AEW's ratings this week. So, they did increase. They absolutely did go up. They went from 622,000 last week to 703,000 this week. And I gotta tell you, man, the comments that you hear from some of these people, the coping that you hear from these people, bruh, it's mind-numbing. It's mind-numbing, bruh. Look, can I read some of these comments from you? So this is underneath Dave Meltzer's post. This is where I got the information from as far as the number last night. It said, news of AEW's demise was greatly exaggerated. What are you... What do you mean exaggerated, bruh? Your new ceiling is 700,000. What the fuck are you talking about greatly exaggerated? You haven't hit 800,000 in like what? Almost 6 months? April, May, June, July, August, and 4 months now. You haven't hit it in almost 4 months. And the last time you hit it was because of CM Punk, a guy who works for your fucking op. What are you talking about greatly exaggerated? If anything, it's not played up enough. We go down a little bit further, bruh. Very good. Always glad to see AEW at the number 1 slot. Thought the show was damn good last night because Dave Meltzer made reference to the fact that this was first on cable, or was first for the day on cable. Bruh. Oh my god, bruh. I hate when they do this shit, bruh. You know, whenever I hear them talk about the first on cable, they never really give context as far as what shows were on that night, as far as who they were competing with. More importantly, the shows that they were competing with last night, what were their ratings? What were their viewership numbers? And how consistent in regards to their viewership number is in competition with AEW? Because obviously they're never going to bring up broadcast, because obviously that's, kind of stupid. The news, I get that. But as far as what's on cable television, and more importantly too, because they never really paint this context for you, from my understanding, most shows that you see on cable television is either as far as Wednesday nights, not like Mondays or Fridays or primetime slots, but usually on Wednesdays when it's a little bit slower. That's why AEW even picked Wednesday to begin with. Those shows, and correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of them are either reruns or in syndication, or for the most part, they're already shown on the streaming service, right? So it's like, I swear, I hear them make these analogies or these metaphors all the time, or lack thereof, excuse me, whenever they talk about the cable television stuff, and I like to make the metaphor that, okay, but like, you're literally like the slowest kid inside your classroom, and like, fuck, like, okay, this will be the equivalent of like being in complete, like you're in LD, fucking 12th grade, and you're in fucking LD, you ride the small bus, all that kind of shit, right? And like, they take your retarded ass and they put you in pre-K, and they tell you to color inside the lines. Like, yeah, you color inside the lines the best in pre-K, but I mean, you're 18 in pre-K going up against other pre-K. Like, it doesn't, I hear that analogy all the time. It makes no sense to me, bro. We continue to go a little bit further down, though. Seems like a low night for cable TV then, maybe. Yeah, duh. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Look at this guy. Here come all the idiotic responses. No, it's not idiotic responses. It's responses that you yourself can't combat, so you try to downplay it so you can make... And they do this shit all the time. I notice with AEW fans, whenever they actually talk about ratings or numbers or any of the bad stuff that's currently going on in AEW, you either have two kind of deflections. Obviously, the number one is going to be the whataboutism, as in, what did WWE do? WWE this, WWE that, WWE this, WWE that, WWE this. Or they try to discredit you as the individual. So they'll call you stupid, they'll call you crazy, they'll bring up some mundane post from your past in order to leverage over you to say something like, hey, wasn't this you? Without actually focusing on the actual message at hand as far as what you're saying, in order to discredit you. So anything that you say going forward should not be taken seriously, even though it's absolutely true, because of the things that you said in the past that have nothing to do with the situation currently at the moment. And when I say in the past, I mean it can be as mundane as you getting something wrong, and they will use that as a way to discredit you for talking about a thing that's legitimately factual right here. You know what I mean? They do this shit all the time. I noticed that, right? And then, let me see, any other comments? Number one, as always, fantastic. Not dying this week, then. Wow, great job. And I swear, man, it's this kind of fucking, man, again, I've been using the word enabler for so long, man, but it's legitimately a fucking cult at this point. I swear to God, how do you take these people seriously is beyond me, man. They make no sense with the rhetoric that they put across. Like, you do understand that your new cap is 700,000. That's a number that would have been not only laughed at, but even above it, 100,000 more, like in the 800,000, was laughed at just a year ago. We've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, bro. Anytime they try to put across these numbers, it's as if they pretend as if like we're living in Men in Black and you have like the little flash thing and you flash it and everyone forgets. Like, bruh, that's not a good number. By any stretch of the imagination, is that not a good number? You peaked. You've lowered yourself now back to the status as to where you were when you were competing with NXT back in 2021. And the sad part about it is you had competition. So that in itself was kind of the excuse as to what you would like to use as far as why you happen to be in the position that you're currently in at that point in time. Now you're right back in that spot. One may even say consistently even lower, but there's no competition across from you. Bro, you are 100,000 above your competition, which is your, but, and again, let me just remind people, because I think they like forget about this kind of shit. You are, Dynamite is the flagship show of AEW. NXT is the third branch. It is the developmental brand, currently at the moment, at the very least, of WWE. See, I think people just kind of brush that out of their mind because they actually think to themselves that AEW within their little bubble, because of what they like to see, is cooking. They're cooking, boys. Oh man, they're in the kitchen. That turkey is baking in that fucking oven. But you don't take into account the outside factors of what everybody is looking at as far as your history is considered, and what we see is a downslope. There's a slope as far as your ratings is considered from 2000 and let's just say 21, where it's going down, then it goes up, really up, especially around that mid portion of 2021. Then it slightly goes down in 2022. Then there's a pattern where it stays in between, where it slightly goes up, slightly goes down. Then you get around 2023 and it just fucking spikes. It spikes considerably. Again, it wasn't, maybe earlier this year where you were still hitting at least high 800,000s, where you're now consistently in the 700 and 600,000. This is probably the biggest drop as far as bracket is considered and like your company's history. So how do you look at something like that and say to yourself that that's a good thing? Just because you're an improvement doesn't mean that that's a good thing. Just because you're not getting an F and you're now getting a D minus don't mean that's a good thing. That's not something we're celebrating. You should be saying things like, okay, that's a step in the right direction, but we need to get better. We need to be consistent. We need to do more of what we did last night on a consistent basis, because last night wasn't that terrible of a show. It wasn't really that bad of a show. I talked about it last night already, obviously. Go check out the review. What you focused on last night in regards to storytelling, as far as trying to flesh out people's characters, fleshing out some of the stories to get prepared for Wembley Stadium, you did a relatively good job at that. But I am curious though, before we actually, get out of here or anything like that, I do want to talk about some other stuff in regards to AEW, like the ratings lead in. Because I think people, and I'm going to make this more of an everyday thing as far as talking about when I break down some of these viewership numbers every week, because I think people don't take into consideration that your show this week, as far as your lineup, all that stuff, I feel like that plays a factor, obviously, into contributing whether or not you're going to come watch the show that night. But I truly believe that the lineup takes second place to what you did the previous week, right? That's why I always harp so much on cliffhangers. I'm not talking about a guy getting laid out in the reverie like Swerve Strickland and Bryan Danielson last night. Although it was a good angle, that's not what I would necessarily call a cliffhanger. That's not a cliffhanger. That's just an angle, a straight up angle. When I talk about cliffhanger, tune in next week to see what's going to happen as far as the circumstances regarding this feud. That's a cliffhanger. That's how you get people attached to want to come back the following week, right? The closest thing that I could think of from a cliffhanger position that we've seen in recent memory in regards to AEW is maybe something with the MJF stuff, with Daniel Garcia being busted open and Will Ospreay and all that other kind of shit. That's the closest thing to a cliffhanger that I could think in recent memory in regards to AEW. And they did a relatively decent job last night as far as getting people invested to maybe wanting to see next week to get built up for the go-home show going into Wembley Stadium. Not a perfect job. I damn damn sure not going to sit here and say this is the Attitude Era in 1999, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Vince and Austin the next week. But I would say that at least within the realms of working in AEW's pay grade, they did a relatively decent job. So with that being said, I want to talk about what happened last week to get people to want to watch this week. Because last week, it's not just the 622,000 number that I'm focused on. I'm also focused on the quarter hourly. What were the segments that did good last week, and what were the ones that failed miserably? So I'll put the link down in the description box below. You can follow along if you like. Alright, so I found a decent article. Unfortunately, I wish I can look at the breakdown numbers as a whole, but fuck, they just started doing this. I might have to go sign up for Brandon Thurston's Patreon account so I can be a little bit more accurate with this. I just found out right now that he has the breakdown for the hours and the quarterly hour stuff behind the paywall, so that kind of sucks, but you know, it is what it is. They got to make their money somehow. But I did find an article at the very least that can break it down as far as like words are considered. I rather look at numbers, but they have a mix of words and numbers. So we'll use this article right here. Wrestling Inc. All right, link is down in the description box below. With wrestling ratings down across the board in the face of the 2024 Olympic Games, that is such a fucking lie. Why do they keep perpetuating that lie? No, it wasn't. Raw and SmackDown both went up dramatically last week. Mind you, this is an article from August 8th. Like, stop saying that. Raw went up last week. It's not as if they missed the ball on this. Raw went up, and then SmackDown went up eventually that week also. And Raw, I think, hit like record viewership numbers this week as far as, you know, their most recent shows. Why do they say anything, I swear to God. With wrestling ratings down across the... Oh, I'm sorry. They say ratings. That's the game that they like to play. They'll misconstrue ratings and viewership numbers when appropriate and when convenient, but then they'll use it appropriately when they don't want to focus on the viewership numbers. That's how they always like to get with WWE. I fucking hate that shit. With wrestling ratings down across the board in the face of the 2024 Olympic Games, AEW Dynamite managed to marginally improve on last week's numbers. As first reported by PW Torch, Tony Khan's flagship Wednesday night program brought in an average of 622,000 total viewers on August 7, up 2% from the 609,000 average viewers it drew for the August 2nd episode. This week's show also rose in the key 18 to 49 demographic, up to 0.19 from last week's 0.18. Overall, Dynamite ranked 8th in the key demo among cable programs on Wednesday. Interestingly, Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics noted that Dynamite's long-time lead-in, The Big Bang Theory, scored a .20 in the 18 to 49 demographic, which has rarely, if ever, happened before. The impact of the lead-in was also clearly seen in WrestleNomics' quarter-hour breakdown. As usual, Dynamite peaked with 822,000 average viewers in the first quarter hour. So the first 15 minutes was 822,000 when it first came on the air, which was taken up entirely by the first part of an American Championship Eliminator match between Kyle Fletcher and MJF. But it dropped 732,000 views in the second quarter hour, so that's around the 8:15 hour. And 626,000 by the 8:30 hour. So it says quarter hourly 3, but it's a lot easier if I just explain it to you guys. So by 8:30, it's at 626,000. So an average loss of almost 230 viewers in the first 30 minutes. The show never recovered from that point, eventually settling at a low point of 516,000 viewers during the 7-minute run, the finish of the end post-match of Bryan Danielson and Jeff Jarrett. The same pattern generally held for the key demo rating. I mean, you know, that kind of paints out to me also before I continue with this. And, you know, you got to admit it, I like Bryan Danielson. I think he's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But, man, it just tells you, man, the WWE machine, man, it does wonders behind most people, man. Bryan Danielson isn't a draw. He isn't a draw. I mean, AEW has to rely on the names. WWE can rely on its own brand name because of its historical nature. But AEW has to rely on its superstars in order to get over in this day and age for their name to have any meaning. And you look at these numbers, 516. I wish I can look at the actual real numbers, but essentially what they're saying is around 516 and lower is what Bryan Danielson and Jeff Jarrett drew. And you can't put the onus on Jeff Jarrett because Jeff Jarrett isn't relevant anymore. It's Bryan Danielson. Not to mention Jeff Jarrett has never really been relevant. I mean, TNA be damn, right? This is all on Bryan Danielson, and he should have drew something, and he didn't draw anything. Continuing on though, while this week's Dynamite rating represented an increase from last week, the show as a whole continues to backslide in year-over-year metrics, with WrestleNomics noting that Dynamite's average viewership for the month of August 2024 is currently down 29% from August 2023, while August 2024's key demo numbers are down 39% from last year at the same time. So this is what I mean when I say, and by the way, that's the end of the article. This is what I mean when I say you have a bunch of AEW geeks going around, running around, talking about this is a great news, 703,000. This is not good, bruh. I don't think these people recognize, or they don't want to recognize, the danger that the company is still currently in right now when negotiating their contract deal with Turner Broadcasting or Warner Brothers Discovery. See, this is also conflating also with the trouble that Warner Brothers is currently in right now with all the money they lost this past week. I think they lost like around $70 billion, something along the lines of that. What do you think that's going to do when you conflate all that with the news of AEW currently being in the situation that they're in right now? Again, it's not to suggest that they won't get their contract renewed, but it's to suggest how much money will they be getting with this contract, this new TV deal, with their numbers being in the position that they're currently in right now. The noticeable decrease year after year for maybe even 3 years, because I think they were peaking in 2022 also. And then they dropped in 2023. And then they dropped in 2024. This is all within the midst of their current contract. Who would give them more money based off of what you're currently seeing at the moment? Who would do that? No one in their right mind would fucking do that, no matter what Tony Khan wants to tell you. Now, I'm hearing news that Tony is talking about that he has an announcement coming up. He has several surprises and all this jargon. It's hard to take Tony at face value when all he talks about when discussing announcements and all this other gobbledygook bullshit is stuff that are super, super redundant and no one gives a shit about. But I am curious. I'm assuming it has to have something to do with the new TV deal, considering that we're coming up. I mean, the TV deal is going to run out in December, right? I would think by now we should be getting some type of announcement or some type of conclusion. I mean, hell, look at WWE. They got their TV contract renewed, or not renewed, but they hit their situation in like August of last year, and we got an announcement like in January or February this year, right? So I would think we should be coming up. We should have been at this point heard something going on. The window's already closed as far as the negotiations are considered. What I'm essentially saying here is like, I think the AEW fanboys, they're coping really, really hard, and they don't recognize that your company in its current position right now, in its current situation, should not be getting the numbers that it's getting right now. Just because it's a plus from the previous week does not mean that they're in a good position. I always use this analogy when describing AEW and its viewership numbers whenever they go up in a positive manner, but they still are incredibly low by the standards of where they were at about 2 or 3 years ago. You're essentially in a well, and all you did was stand up. You are still stuck in the well. You have not started to climb out of the well. You are in the well, you just managed to get off your knees and you managed to stand up. But if you do not get out of that well, if that well fills up with water, you are going to drown. And I don't think the AEW fanboys recognize this. Just because you managed to stand up, that does not mean you're out of trouble. This 700,000 number, you are still stuck in the well. This 700,000 number, you have not started to climb the wall yet. There is no help, there is no rope, there is nothing to save you right now. You are still stuck at the bottom of the fucking well. So why, in God's green name, would you sit here, God's green name, God's green earth, whatever, would you sit here and pretend as if what you're saying right now makes any sense? It's a massive coat that's going to be a detriment to this company as time goes on. And I swear to God, it gives like this dopamine effect to Tony Khan to hear people talk about his company in this manner when he knows deep down inside that they are in a totally fucked up situation, no matter how you want to paint it. No matter the parent company, no matter where they sit currently at the moment, they are in a horrible situation. There is no way, and one more metaphor comparison, I'm out of here. Can you imagine your parents, right? Your parents. Let's just say that your parents are super wealthy, right? Can you imagine you doing your chores? And let's just say hypothetically you were getting, I don't know, let's just say $50. Let's say your parents are middle class, upper middle class to rich, right? Let's say you were getting around $50 to $100 weekly allowance, right? Because of the stuff you did around the house, right? And all the other stuff you did at school. Now imagine two things happening at the same time. A, your grades are starting to drop, and B, you're not pulling your weight around the house. And at the same time, your parents, one of them just lost their job. Some situations just happened that gave them a financial hit. What would not only be the incentive for them to want to give you more money when you're already failing as is to do your job, do your part? You're already failing miserably at that, so why would they give you more money as a reward? Why would they do that? Why would they incentivize bad behavior? But then on top of that, they themselves probably don't have the spare cash to be given to you like that. On top of that, that's literally the AEW situation currently at the moment. They're not holding up their end of the bargain, and at the same time, their parent company is starting to lose money. And what fucking way do you look at that and hypothesize the fact that they're going to get a larger contract? But hey, man, typical AEW fanboy behavior. They say whatever they have to say to make themselves feel better about the bad situation that they're currently in at the moment. A positive is a positive, no matter how much you want to fucking look at it and say that it's a negative. If we can spin it, oh boy, we're going to twirl like Cinderella in this bitch, am I right? But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let me hear some of your comments in regards to what we heard from the AEW fanboys clearly coping at the moment. Can we hear some words of, of encouragement from some of the AEW fanboys? It's at the comment section who's going to call me all kinds of names because you yourself have to deflect with whatever ad hominem in order to not confront the situation that happens to be directly in front of your face. Come on, AEW fanboys, give me some words of encouragement, okay? Go ahead. Call me a virgin even though I fuck more bitches than you have in a fucking month. Give me some words of encouragement. And by that I mean one girl, but the same pussy every single time. And no, this time it wasn't your mom, okay? Give me something. Give me something that's not so fucking cliche and boring than the virgin jokes and all this other stuff. Come on. Give me your best shot. Come on. You gotta do better than that, okay? You gotta do better than if you don't like it, don't watch it. You gotta do better than you're a sexist, misogynist, racist. You gotta do better than, come on. It's so boring. Here's an idea. Live and learn with the facts. Or, I don't know, skibbity yourself. That way, you be doing the world a favor for yourself and for the rest of us. You'd be doing the favor for yourself because you don't have to live on the world. You don't have to live on the planet where you have to hear bad news about your favorite wrestling company, you fucking psycho. And you be doing us a favor because you be taking out yourself, which means you just took out a potential school shooter. So it's a win-win. As always, my name is Devontae, and I'll be catching you guys later. Deuces and a P. Eyes.